Hey, Nikki, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I appreciate your time today. And for those people who haven't heard about you, why don't you give a little bit of an introduction about yourself and your journey here so far?
Yeah, my name's Nikki and I am a life coach. So basically, I work with individuals to build better habits to reach their goals. And what that means is I help people overcome or manage their mindset and then really overcome roadblocks that prevent them from reaching their goals. So this could be in multiple aspects of your life. Stress, which is a huge one that we're talking about today, mental health, physical health, careers, relationships, money, you name it. That's everything that I work on with my clients. So before I got into life coaching, I was actually a training manager and I did a lot of new employee development, leadership coaching, and new employee onboarding. And I really enjoyed the aspect of mentoring and helping people, especially when they didn't know certain things, life skills, that sort of stuff. And I wanted to go in a more personal route. So that's when I decided to venture out into life coaching and make my own impacts with people all over the world.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
pretty much rattled off all of the five categories: mental health, physical health, money, career, like all the stuff that we talk about here on this podcast. So
Yeah.
definitely similar groups. And I really appreciate the fact that a lot of people are trying to do that, but it seems that you found a way to consistently make effort. Not, and a lot of people say like to niche down and to figure out like one area of your life, but it's really
Yeah.
all encompassing and they're all get affected and intertwined. If you're in good health, then it's easier to get up and work harder. But if you're not having as much money, it's harder to eat clean and to go to the gym and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I love that you said that because I don't have a specific niche which I enjoy because there's so much gray area and things if things are going on in your professional life, they're going on in your
Mhm.
personal life. They're just being carried through from one to the other. Or if you don't have your budget in order, that's going to affect how you show up physically and mentally and all those different aspects. So they all combine together. And that's the biggest part is making all those moving pieces work together
Yep. And
to
there's
reach your goals.
exactly. And there's always that graphic that comes out. You can essentially pick three, like a social life, income, or a relationship, and then physical health and going to the gym and stuff. So how do you balance all that? Because it is quite stressful to have all those spinning plates going on.
Yeah, yeah, it is stressful. And to be honest, this podcast couldn't have come at a better time for me because this week was definitely a test for me and how I prioritize and how my discipline comes into play. But honestly, the biggest part for me is making sure that I have a schedule and I understand what's going on. And for some people that maybe are hesitant with the schedule, it doesn't mean it has to be super rigid. Like I have something where I know what's going on if there's specific times, that sort of thing. And I stay up to date with that as much as possible. So that's one aspect. And another aspect comes to managing my mind around what's going on and the stress that's involved basically with the events going on, whatever's on my calendar.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about time management a little bit more. Do you create a weekly timetable and then break it up into these are the tasks that you have to do for the week? And then every day you look at it, what am I going to tackle today? Or is it day by day, month by month? How do you
Yeah.
organize a calendar like that?
Yeah, so I do it a couple different ways, and I really advise people that don't have a calendar or something, find a way that works for you. If it's electronic, paper, you got to test those things out. But I have a couple moving parts with my calendar, which works for me. I use Google Calendar, and that's where I put all my like time events. Like I have a coaching call with a client at 1 p.m. Like I put all those things on there. I schedule out monthly things on that calendar, weekly stuff. And then every single week, typically Sunday nights for me, I look at my week and I see what do I have going on. And then I fill in the gaps with things that I need to do to keep my business running, which we all have those basic administrative stuff that we have to do, or just planning stuff like trying to figure out next steps. So I do that on a weekly basis. But then every single morning or the night before, just depending on what my schedule is, I look at my next day and or that day and figure out like what's going on that day. What do I need to give myself to make sure that I make it through the day or something of that nature? Or what can I add on to challenge myself? And it comes down to like how I'm feeling that day and what's going on. So if I know I'm going to hit the ground running first thing in the morning at 7 a.m., then I might give myself a little more leeway. But If I have like a calm morning, I may challenge myself in a different way. And that's where those kind of moving pieces come into play with that stuff.
Yeah, and that's almost exactly what I do on the Sunday night ritual. Like I have things that come up like meeting requests or podcast interviews or whatever it may be that I know in advance. And then Sunday night comes in, I try to organize it and break it out into a rough outline of what I'm planning on doing every day. And then things will come up, but I try to break it out into four quadrants. Like I have two different businesses, and then I have my personal stuff, which is like errands, gym, etc., and other like
Yeah.
entertainment level things. Yeah, because you don't want to lose track of all of them. And then um, meeting requests on Google Calendar is good, but I feel like writing things on paper, if you can, always just help because if it's on your desk, you're just always
Yeah.
looking at it, and that helps.
Yes, I completely agree. And I was actually going to follow up with that is on my daily or weekly basis, I do write on paper. So I just have a notepad if you want to get, I love the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt if you want something fancy,
Hmm.
but every day I just turn to a sheet in my notebook and I write down like what I need to accomplish that's not on my calendar for that day and then anything that's important. So I have that to look at every single day and just check things off or cross it off, but also at the beginning of the week, if there's super important things that I need to accomplish, like more than a couple days that week, I'll put it on a sticky note and I have it right there. It's ready to go. I know what to do. So yeah, it's definitely a hybrid and you have to figure out what works best for you. But I do feel like if, especially if you're an achiever like me, writing it down and
Hmm.
crossing it off is a good feeling. So I
Yep.
like that aspect.
100% agreed. But for those people who get drained by crossing things off the to-do list or having it written down in front of them or them constantly looking at it, sometimes that gives them anxiety or bad stress and
Yeah.
they can't really perform well with that. So what would you recommend for those people who like need to know about? Obviously there's stuff that are upcoming, but not always in their face because that'll give them anxiety.
Yeah. So I would have to say, give yourself leeway and figure out what works best for you. Of course, that's the general broad answer, but there's some questions that you can figure out to evaluate what's most important to you. So I think of life into two different sections, like personal life and professional life. If a schedule is something that really overwhelms you, and let's say you have to have one at work, or that's like really important to manage your work life, by all means, do what you need to do there. But for a personal life, have that balance. So if you don't enjoy schedules, then don't create one. But you have to at least give yourself some sort of discipline or like a way to prioritize what's most important for you so you don't make yourself more stressed and overwhelmed by forgetting all these things. A couple questions to ask yourself, just thinking of the bare minimum, but what's required of me when it comes to like personal life? What do I need to do to keep my house running or to keep my lights on or anything that's like the bare minimum? And then what are your non-negotiables? So if overwhelm and stress and prioritizing your schedule is not something that you enjoy, then give yourself days to just do nothing. Don't set an intention 4 out of the 3 or 7 nights of the week. So you give yourself that leeway, but then understand those 3 other nights, you have to do the dishes or
Mhm.
pay your bills or vacuum. You have to do some things productive, and it doesn't have to be a schedule. You can just do them when they feel good. That's all. Just know that you have to get those things done at a certain time frame. And that's where the discipline comes into play. Like I don't enjoy necessarily cleaning or doing all those normal things, but you have to do them to keep yourself running to manage your feelings and stress. It's just one of those things where we have to use that discipline.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And I like that approach of batching. I do that as well. Like even I don't enjoy cooking, but I know I meal prep because it just
Yeah,
cooking once a week is fine. Like I can deal with it. And then
exactly. Yeah.
while while everything is cooking, after you're done with the prep, then you get to clean. And then it's like multitasking. And then while I'm shopping, I do my laundry and I come back and I finish. So it's like I do everything multitasking, but at the same time. So that way just 3 hours and I'm done with everything for the week in terms of those like household items. But yeah, batching things in a certain periods of time keeps that rhythm going and that routine. So like for me, it was always Saturday mornings would get
Yeah.
all that stuff done, and it helps you. You just wake up and you already know what you're gonna do. It's kind of this lesser extent of what Mark Zuckerberg, and them do, where they have their clothes already out the night before. They already know what they're going to wear. It takes one
Yeah.
decision off of your plate. But that whole concept of there's two different aspects, right? There's some people who to see the list and get energy out of it and they perform well under quote unquote good stress, and then some people don't. So where would you identify, or where would you help people identify, because everybody views things differently, obviously, um,
Mhm.
the difference between knowing what is a good stress for me and what is a bad stress for me? Because I think everybody is going to experience stress at certain times, and you just have to know how to maximize the good stress.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was thinking about this week when it comes to stress and like levels, like sometimes people refer to stress as like being productive, like you have so much stuff on your plate. And
Yeah.
your level of stress is based on what feels good to you. Just because another person works 12, 14 hours a day and is stressed out, but is super productive, that doesn't mean that works for you. So understanding like what feels good to you and having those boundaries or your non-negotiables around that. When it gets to the point where it's bad stress, your body is going to tell you in some certain way. And that could be emotionally, physically, cognitive symptoms, or behavioral symptoms. And they come in so many different ways. So you could understand like if you get like irritable, racing heart, you start to get that anxiety, that heavy chest feeling. There's so many symptoms. I have a massive list of just random symptoms that I've experienced myself. And that's my clue when I know I gotta calm down because things are starting to like ramp up a little bit with my body. Paying attention to those things. Let me see if I can find that list. But would you agree with that? Have you noticed certain things like with your body when you start to get really stressed, like things happen?
Yeah, like for me, I'm a firm believer that like when I'm in the zone of productivity and there's a stressful deadline, but I know what I have to do. It's just a matter of doing it. Then I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm ready and I'm focused. And I'm actually like, I keep telling myself like I'm a machine, I could do this. And that tends to help.
Yeah.
But when there's another sort of a deadline and you maybe don't know where to even start, and it's more like the anxiety of I don't even know where to go with this, then I don't have maybe the lack of confidence in being able to do it, and that's what then stresses me out. And I call that like bad stress because it's not really something that I can't plug away and work on it because I have to figure out what I'm gonna do. And those things
Yeah.
you just figure out as much as you can to eliminate them before they happen. So if there's a deadline coming up and you don't know where to start earlier, then don't procrastinate. Because what a lot of times I notice is myself, and I'm sure other people as well, is they have a deadline of something that they don't really know what to do with. So they procrastinate until the end, and then they get extremely stressed out because they don't know where to start. And now it's too late to do all that legwork to figure it out.
Yeah.
Um,
And like seek support in those situations. Like I know it can be like, oh, I don't want to be that person that asks a question or reaches out for help, but don't delay those things. Cause like you said, the more you procrastinate, the worse it's going to get. So at least if you can start figuring out basic understandings of things or projects or things that are going on inside your personal life, find those things out, ask people, talk with others, and figure out what would work best for you so you can figure those things out and at least get your brain or thoughts rolling a little bit before the due date so you're not so like clueless when it gets to that time frame.
For sure. And that's definitely where the time management and the discipline helps ease the stress, which is the whole point of the conversation here. And another question is like a lot of people will notice when their body is breaking down, right? And they know they're stressed. But is there a way to break that down a little bit beforehand to know that, okay, I'm edging towards stress? Because I feel you're normal, right? And then your constant flow, and then you become stressed, and then you get like anxiety, and then you get burnt out after you're having too much stress for too long. So where are those like stopping points to really, what kind of questions can you ask yourself to check in and be like, okay, am I starting to veer towards stress area? Or am I starting to veer towards even worse, burnout?
Yeah. So I love that you asked that question because this happened to me this week. And this is why I love that we're having this conversation. Like, I worked, this has been like by far one of the busiest weeks I've ever had. And Monday and Tuesday, I worked 2 12-hour days. And that's a non negotiable. That's not okay for me in the work that I do. So I had to ask myself Tuesday night, once I got done with my day, like, what can I get rid of in my schedule that's not 100% necessary? Like
Mm.
showing up for my clients and my coaching calls and showing up for a podcast. Like that is 100% necessary, and I need to show up and be my best self in those situations. So what can I get rid of that I don't really being lazy or like forgetting responsibilities, but it's making sure that I can manage my stress to be the best person I can in other situations. I got rid of some small events or tasks that I had to do this week and I pushed them off to next week, and I'm fine. It's still, everything's still going on. And yes, my stress is still there, but it's more manageable because I got rid of some small tasks and I gave myself that time during those tasks to have zero expectations for myself and just take a break, whatever that means to you, getting up from your office, walking down the street, sitting on the couch, closing your eyes for 10 minutes, whatever that might be. So that's one question. Another question would be like, where in the day can I provide myself some time to do something I enjoy or do something I should manage, or I can should maintain my stress levels or something like that. So like meditation may not be something that you enjoy, but it helps you. So where can you provide yourself a timeline to do that? And you have to be very selfish with those things. So I know probably an issue that maybe some of your listeners would run into is I work 8 to 5. I can't give myself 10 minutes. Look at your schedule and see what's possible. And if it's truly one of those situations where it's not possible, then you might have to reconsider or think some other options or get really creative with ways that you can help yourself. This is going to require you to be outside of the box or think outside of the box and be more proactive for your health, mentally and physically, than maybe what you were before.
Yeah, I really like that question. Finding out something that you can enjoy in your day. And what I used to do, or at least to decompress during some of the tough days of long working days, for example, is I would always just sit in the car as I'm driving and just reflect. And normally I listen to podcasts, but there's days where I would just
Yeah.
listen to nothing and let my mind unwind and not be constantly stimulated all the time by either work or podcast or anything like that. So it was a time for me, like that 45 minute 1 hour commute would really help unwind. And then you're almost like refreshed, even though it's like 8 p.m. at that time, but you
Yeah.
got like another batch of
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you with like silence in the car when I'm overwhelmed. That's my thing. But some people may put on good music. Music
Mhm.
helps you relax and boost your mood and energy and all that. So find what works for you.
For sure. So when you're trying to engage with the client and you're trying to help them get their stress management in order or their time management in order, do you look at specific areas of their life that take the most demand, or like what is their biggest need first? Can you walk us through what you were to look at if somebody were to do a self-assessment on themselves?
Yeah. So the first question I would ask is we would get an inventory. So if you have stuff going on, take 5 to 10 minutes and just write down everything on a piece of paper that's overwhelming you. Typically, I would have a conversation with my client about this, but you could write it all down and just write everything down that's in your mind that you have going on that's overwhelming, and just get it down on paper, because that really helps you separate yourself from those feelings, thoughts, whatever they might be. And it's most definitely a time where this is not for you to judge yourself. This is time for to help yourself out and get into curiosity and problem solving. So you need to
Mhm.
get all those things out without any judgment. So I would have that conversation, but then we would figure out like what's most important to you. So what would get the ball rolling the most to help you so we could start tackling these other things moving forward.
And let me interject real
Yeah.
quick if you don't mind. Like when you're talking about what is going to help the ball move forward, is you're talking short term specifically, like maybe the next week or month, or is it like more of a long term focus?
Yeah. So overall, the goal, that's a good question. Overall, the goals, of course, are more long term, but when we
Mhm.
start out, it is short term. It is very short term, only 1 week in advance. So we want to look at what's most important for this upcoming week to make sure that you can manage yourself, your stress, whatever that might be. So for some achievers, it may be in work. For other people, it may be in their personal life. So once you make that decision for yourself, we're then going to take a look at those aspects that are coming into play. And honestly, this is where the mindset work comes into play as well. These tasks going on, stress is a feeling of overwhelm. And that's a
Mhm.
feeling, and it comes from your thoughts. So understanding like what's going on in your head during these times when you do these tasks. And A very specific example that I would like to share is the other morning I was doing the dishes. I was doing something, but I was just sitting and stewing on how much stuff I had to do today in my head. And that just caused me to become more overwhelmed. That wasn't necessary at that time. All I
Mhm.
was doing was the dishes. And that caused me to be more stressful. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to managing your mindset, is understanding what's going on in your head through those events, because that's a big factor in how we manage our stress, that feeling that we have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I smiled because like when you're just constantly reflecting, like right now, my thing is it almost seems counterintuitive, but you like don't ask questions after you make a decision. Okay, I'm doing the dishes right now. That thought creeps up.
Yeah.
Then the first question I ask is, can I do anything about this right now? No, obviously, because you're doing the dishes. And then every time another question comes up in your mind, because it's like a constant internal dialogue, I just
Yep.
shut it down because like I can't do anything right now. And
Yeah.
sometimes that helps, but it's just the consistency of just not asking yourself continuous questions. Like for me, it was also for the gym. I go back to that routine a lot, and I mentioned it on a previous episode. I know I have to go to the gym because that gives me a stress relief after a day,
Yeah.
after a long day, especially. So like I have my clothes in the car and then I leave no matter when I leave work, back when I was in corporate or now whenever I decide. But I was having a long day at corporate, doesn't matter that I had a long day. I know I needed to go to the gym. So that's like the only question I ask. I don't say, am I tired? Am I hungry? Do I want to go home? All those other things that detract you, you just kind of shut it down. And that helps you stay consistent.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I love that. And a question I ask myself is, does this thought serve a purpose for me? Is it
Mhm.
good? Great. Keep on using that. If it's bad or it doesn't help at this point, let's shut it down. It sounds silly, but you have to separate yourself from your brain and
Yes.
talk back in some ways like that, or shut those things down. This does not serve a purpose for me. I'm going to stop thinking about this because it's not okay. And it's only making things worse for myself.
And it's important to know that like your brain is always going to try to put you in that comfort zone. So like what you said, to separate yourself
Yes.
from it is really hard at times, but once you get a handle of it, you can start like controlling your thoughts a little bit, and that becomes life becomes a little bit easier when you're not your own self-critic all the time.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, when you say stop thinking about that, it sounds simple, but it does take practice and time
Mhm.
and years of work. And if you just consistently focus on that mental health aspect in your mindset and bettering yourself, it's naturally going to help all other aspects of your life, including stress, time management, all those other things that we're talking about.
So when your journey to discovering, like you always had a passion, seems like, to help people outside of the current training regimen that you were in corporate, for example,
Yeah.
when you were just lead trainer. So how did you discover how to effectively communicate with people to help them? Because a lot of people, like they know their own body and it's going to
Yep.
be harder for them to receive help when they don't really understand the depth of it, for example, that they're in.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about
So
where you learn how to analyze that.
yeah, so I think the biggest thing is the work that I've done for myself. So I have experience in those aspects, but also being curious. I think that's the biggest part for me, and that your listeners should be with themselves. Ask yourself, if I'm feeling tired right now, why is that? If I'm stressed out right now, why is that? Like, you don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to have that negative self talk, but just understand, give yourself grace and be curious with those things. And that's what I do for my clients. Like I said, our natural tendency is to just beat ourselves up about it or something of that nature. So asking open ended questions like, why do you think you got to this way? Or what happened to make you think that way? And just hearing where their brain takes them and watching them go from this conversation to that conversation to something else, you can kind of how things affect you in different ways when those different aspects of your life. So I guess that's like a more general answer, but I'd say the biggest thing is curiosity with
Yeah.
yourself.
I like to asking yourself why you feel that way, not just acknowledging that emotion, but really diving into it a little bit more helps you uncover a lot there. So I think that's
Yeah.
and if you're alone and you're not reaching out to any coaching, just answering that out loud would also help instead of
Yeah.
just like
And
thinking.
journaling is not the same when you're an adult. Like, of course, when I guess some people, when they think about journaling, it's Dear Diary from
Yeah.
back when we were like 10 years old, but that's not what I mean. Growing yourself as a person, as an adult, like journal these things out. Ask yourself, how come I'm feeling this? and take 5 minutes and write everything down. And once again, be curious. Don't be judgmental about yourself and these feelings that you're having or whatever's going on. And really doing that really helps yourself separate or helps you separate yourself from what's going on. It really does help in a strange way.
Yeah, I started doing like more videos of myself because writing it down sometimes I'm
Yeah.
on the road or something like that, and it just feels weirder still.
Yeah.
But I have made a commitment this year to actually just start video journaling, I guess, with my thoughts of the day or of the week or whenever I decide, like,
That's
okay,
so
I need
cool.
to do it.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Nick, this has been like a lot of really good tips that I definitely want to summarize up in the notes. But the last question that I like to ask, and I know you've given a lot of tips already, is like your favorite tip right now, because a lot of people who listen to podcasts maybe just go finish out their errands, or if they're cleaning or whatever they're doing, they just forget about it or go to the next one and kind of leave all the to-dos done. So if you were to give one final tip that you have to apply that's related to discipline and habit building, what would that be?
I would say my biggest tip is that you have to be intentional. It's not an option to just kind of do things like halfway in, halfway out, because if you do it that way, then you're going to get halfway in, halfway out results. So, you know, it took you time to get to where you are. The time, maybe neglect or lack of boundaries, whatever it might be. And it's going to take you time to fix these things. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be instant, which I know that's what all of us want, is just that instant fix. But you have to be intentional with it while giving yourself grace and leeway and understanding that you need rest. It doesn't mean being busy all the time and scheduling yourself to work 12-hour days or anything of that. Find what works best for you with those boundaries and be intentional with sticking to simple things. Don't try and do it all, just fix a couple things.
Nice. Yep. Start small and build that slowly. And I definitely second that. That is some great advice. Nikki, for those people who want to reach out and follow you or maybe get some assistance from you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on the typical Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. My Facebook and Instagram page is Unleashed Leadership. And then, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Nicki Conradt Eberlin. I'm also on TikTok trying to figure that thing out, but that's a whole different beast for another day. But yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I also have a website, Unleashed Leadership. You can check that out as well. I'm happy to have any conversations with anybody.
Yep, appreciate it. And I will definitely have all those links in the show notes. And I hope people reach out because I think it's important when you're getting started to get somebody to maybe ask you those questions, because answering it out loud to
Yes,
somebody else to provide feedback sometimes is really the push that you need to get started.
absolutely.
And
Couldn't agree more.
awesome. I really appreciate your time, Nikki. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode here on YouTube. For more videos like this, please like and subscribe.